You are listening to the Justin Lassick Podcast, and thank you very much for clicking and listening today. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Just search my name, Lassek, as Lassick, and it'll come up. This episode is going to be challenging for a lot of different reasons, but also if you're not in the greatest headspace, then you might want to delay this episode. Look, this is, the fourth or fifth time I've tried to record anything. Been kind of thinking about this topic for the last week, and it's about sexual abuse in the military. And I have kind of a whole preface I need to get through in order to kind of insulate the discussion about this, maybe a little bit for my sake. I assume you can hear it in the tone of my voice. I'm emotionally fatigued from this. It hasn't necessarily made my emotional problems any worse, but it's a challenging topic. But I think the constant that I'm getting from women who are both in the military and women who have been the recipient of some form of sexual abuse is that the fact that I'm even doing this or acknowledging it is a big deal, because it's not acknowledged within the community of the military. And if you are in the military, thank you, especially if you're a dude, thank you for listening to this. But blatantly, I'll say this, is that there's a culture problem in the military. And the two things that are symptoms of it are sexual abuse in the military and emotional health. Today is focused on sexual abuse, and we'll talk about emotional health in the future, but they're intimately related, and we'll touch on it a little bit. So, I'm trying to figure out where to begin. I've got a bunch of notes here. I've got like 4 pages of stuff. I've heard these stories before, and the reason these types of stories are coming to light is because Vanessa Guillen, which I apologize if I'm pronouncing her last name wrong, but she was sexually abused at her base. She was in the Army, and then she reported it and feared for her safety, and then was murdered, and basically her body was chopped up and disposed of, and then the guy that did it ended up killing himself. And very, very disheartening story, but one of the problems with that story is that it seemed like nothing was happening from external sources. And so for people that are survivors of sexual abuse in the military, it was particularly frustrating because they saw the same things that happened to them happen to Vanessa, and then she ultimately died from it, and then the family didn't know for a very long time what had actually happened to her. And there was even a social media campaign of, to find Vanessa Guillen. And whatever the chain of command was or wasn't doing in that case, I don't fully know, but it's all over the news, so you can kind of refresh about a very high-profile example. And then everything I'm going to talk about today is basically the same fucking story over and over. And it's unfortunate it has to happen that way, but the first thing we have to do in a situation like this is acknowledge that it is happening, because we'll find that doesn't happen a lot. And I don't aim to tell the stories of people that shared their stories with me. So again, thank you to the women that did. And I'm sure as fuck not going to mansplain anything. I'm trying not to really have any kind of overt toxic masculinity anyway, but that's a whole different podcast discussion. But I'm a dude, and I'm a white dude, obviously. And the position I'm in is different than a lot of different people in the world. But I have the utmost empathy for all types of people, whether we're talking about racial justice or gender or any kind of sexuality orientation. All those things are very important to me, that people are treated just like people. It's as being a humanist, and every great philosophical figure in the history of the world has always kind of had the same sentiment, which was something along the lines of treat others the way you want to be treated. And that is not what's happening in a lot of cases. And so I have this platform, and if you disagree, not maybe on this topic, because this topic's pretty fucking cut and dry, but if you disagree with me on things, then that's a good thing. I would want you to be stimulated in thought And you don't necessarily have to try and change my mind, but I just hope that it stimulates your reasoning to either reinforce why you think things or to be open-minded about something else. And so if you're a guy in the military and you put me on a pedestal because I was a fairly large bearded Green Beret who did fucking combat things and really liked it, and then I got the legs blown off. So if you like respect me for any of that, or you respect the platform, or you respect, like, I don't know, if you have any of that, then you'll take this type of thing into serious consideration, especially if you're in the conventional military, because that's where it seems to be worse, a little bit more so than special operations. But special operations is not innocent of this. So I'm learning about this. I'm learning by talking to survivors. I'm learning about terms and approaches. I had one person early on when I put this stuff out on my Instagram in order to kind of a request for stories, and one of my friends said, "Thank you for not trying to tell people stories and to listen." And I was just like, "Whoa, fuck! I don't even know that was a thing like that." Like, either guys do that or they don't listen. Like, I just didn't know that was a thing. And so I learned that, and then I'm learning things about terms. And so I'm just doing my best with all this. So if for some reason I jack this up along the way, that it's not within the correct terms that a particular person may prefer, because I have discrepancies of even saying the word survivor, but across, I'd say like 90% of the people I talk to preferred that term over victim. Victim can be insulting because it's kind of reducing the person, like their identity is surrounding this event in their life. And all of you guys, in this case, all of you women, and guys, so I'll touch on that in a second, but all the women that I talk to regarding this topic, like, you're so much more than this event. And sorry is never enough, but I'm sorry it happened to you. I just wish that this community of the military wasn't like this. And we'll see what we can do to change it. But survivor is a preferred term in most cases, because it kind of has like an inherent connotation of empowerment and the ability to move on and heal from the event, and from someone else who has had a different type of trauma in their life. That's important, because for me, I could identify as a victim. Sometimes I kind of do, but then my primary portion of, like, my identity is that I have to put the work in to progress and heal from all of this. It's not like on anybody else. It's just that there's a set of circumstances that make things difficult and make it irritating within the military. And I'm just speaking from my perspective. So imagine that all of this applies within the context of sexual abuse in an environment that all you're there to do is to do your job and serve your country, and this kind of stuff happens. There is sexual abuse against men. I didn't talk to any men. I would imagine that it's even more difficult for them to reach out and share any experience with this. I'm not a therapist, nor am I trying to be, but if any guys want to reach out to me for some reason, you're welcome to do so. I don't know how you could do it anonymously. You could create a fake profile. I don't know. I'm willing to at least listen. Sometimes that's enough. And sometimes some of these women told me things that they've said they hadn't really told anybody else. And I mean, that's not necessarily super heavy. It is kind of heavy for me, but it's more so like, it's a bummer. Not a bummer. It's just... I just wish that they had someone to talk to about it that wouldn't have some sort of judgment, whether it's in their unit or someone that's supposed to be there for them, or in regular life, because there's a lot of stigma with emotional health, and you get a lot of emotional health problems from this. So another thing that is important to kind of just brush aside right now is that there are women who falsely accuse people of sexual abuse. And so one thing that is a problem is when the movement is kind of coming to a head. In this case, the Vanessa Gillen thing has inspired or been a catalyst for women speaking out about sexual abuse in the military. And then you might run into situations where a guy's like, well, I was falsely accused and it was fucking bullshit, and it had this effect on me. and that dude's totally right, but right now is not the time to bring that up because of it doesn't honor what happened to the people that actually were abused. So I hear you guys. I've talked to at least one of you. I know that it does happen. I even heard stories from some of the women. Like there are punks out there in all categories, and so there are punk women who will make shit up about a dude because they don't like him or whatever, and then it complicates this topic because it deters away from the actual people who are abused and that have to survive through this shit, because what we'll find is that there's a huge stigma and response against people who are abused. And the women, I'd say women because it's probably always, over a majority women. Maybe there's some men, but basically if you make shit up, you're fucking over everybody else, and it's a piece of shit thing to do. Maybe there's some emotional problems that go into that. I don't know. So it's difficult to be empathetic for that. But just everybody try and do your best with this topic is kind of the thing. And I just don't want to get bogged down with like the situations, especially in a response to this, where guys are like, I have seen a problem with people falsely accusing dudes. That does happen. But you also have to remember that the data that might exist on this, because apparently someone has verbally cited studies or study on this, which I was never made privy to, but you're also looking at reported stuff. And so, man, there's never going to be data on what isn't reported from someone who's been sexually abused. But a lot of the people that talk to me never reported it for fear of one thing or another, and we'll get into that later. So if you cite certain research or whatever, or any data that might be in a singular unit, just remember that the reporting is not accurate. The data on reporting is not accurate. If anything, it's false, because things don't get reported because of fear. And then when they do get reported, we'll see all the kind of bullshit that happens, particularly with chains of command, that fuck the person over that got abused. So I hear you dudes who have been falsely accused. Just it's not the time to say anything. Maybe there's room for discussion later, and that's okay. But that's a minor problem compared to this overwhelmingly large cultural issue in the military. I've also noticed that the political sensitivity from military women is different than maybe the portions of the left side of the political realm, which I'm socially pretty liberal. So I don't like trying to, as an example, I don't like the idea of trying to end oppression with oppression. And this isn't the episode to discuss that. But I also worry about the backlash from people that might be kind of on a left-leaning side of the spectrum, of which I would agree with in philosophy. And so terms and everything, that's why I'm kind of asking for a pass, because I'm just a dude trying to do the best I can about this. But women in the military, whether it's because the military kind of naturally selects for more of a maybe right, center right, or even Republican type candidate, or just being involved in the culture of the military kind of lends you towards that political spectrum, or just being in the culture of the military kind of it lowers your, maybe you're around something more, maybe, I'm not saying like offensive type stuff, you get desensitized to it, but like if you're around a certain type of culture, especially when it's a little more male dominated in the military in general, and that's changing and trending differently. But basically whatever the observation is, most of the women don't care about me. They're not worried about me mansplaining. They're not worried about like the terms I'm using and shit like that. But there are people who might, because there are a bunch of civilian survivors of sexual abuse that might listen to this, and there'd be parallels, and it might be different, because the women that talk to me about the military, they indicate that with their time in civilian life, that the military has an incredibly higher rate of this type of behavior or treatment or actual abuse. So generally, I think that military women or former that have been involved in this or been subjected to, like the microaggressions from doing their job, microsexual aggressions, in other words, that they're just happy to have an ally in this. And I wish you guys didn't have to think of it as like me being an ally to you. I wish that's just how it was. So the fact that I acknowledge this as a problem, I've been told literally that it might mean more than whatever it is I actually say, just because I'm a dude and I did the job that I did, and that I'm saying, hey, this is bullshit and it needs to change. So hopefully this does something. So generally what I hope to accomplish today is I'm not going to tell any of the stories because I don't want to. Everyone's anonymity is important to me, but we'll talk about some of the components of the stories, try and generalize the consistent faults. This, in the end, increases the awareness. It generates discussion. And then there are some potential recommendations, whether from me as a dude or from the actual people that either A, were abused, or B, are in behavioral health, C, they're like the equivalent of, I don't know what the newer term needs to be, but like a victim advocate in the legal system for the sexual harassment reporting in the military. And then sometimes the woman is all of those roles. Like she has been abused and is a victim advocate, and then some of them are also like work in behavioral health in these units. So some of them have given some potential recommendations, and there are just some faults that occur throughout this process. So we're going to talk a little bit about culture, chain of command, the response from a unit or chain of command, survivor care, touch on a little emotional health. All of this boils down to a lack of accountability within the military. And we see this with emotional health too. And so let's kind of get into it. I'm going to touch on some. I'm going to read you something. Let's do that. This is Sadie Strong. So she posted this on Instagram. It kind of went viral for her because it was in response to the Vanessa Gillen thing. So if you've never heard of this story, I'm just going to read you one story because it's descriptive. And this is really the only story I'm going to read. It's already public. I don't know, Sadie. Thank you for sharing. Here it goes. My name is Sadie Strong. She has a picture of herself in her uniform. This was me in 2012. I was 19 years old. I was born on December 5th, 1992, and that girl died on deployment in the Middle East after being raped by her command. I was lucky enough to physically still come back home, but I was forever changed. I cry when I look at these photos because it's something so important to me, and I lost her and everything she loved because she wasn't protected. Vanessa Gillen's remains are more than likely just found. The timing of this post was around there, but they were found, and they were confirmed to be Vanessa. Her abuser killed himself when they went to arrest him, and her family was given no answers, no respect, no investigation. I didn't report when I was gang raped by higher-ups in my command, she wrote. They took pictures of it and thought it was funny and even left them on my phone. When I brought it up, one of them that I thought was my friend, he said it was my fault because I drank with them. They shipped me off the next week to another base in Qatar because they feared I would report them. They sent another person with me from their shop to, quote, keep eyes on me, end quote. A few weeks later, he drugged me and raped me after work one day. I remembered it all but was unable to fight back. I reported it the very next day. They took me to medical and did a rape kit. Turned out his ex-fiancée broke things off when he deployed because he raped her too and she was scared of him. They wouldn't allow her to come to court, but they allowed him multiple friends as character witnesses. He's a good old boy. He didn't rape me. They also, quote, lost, quote, all my medical documentation from the day after examination. I was laughed at and called a liar. And yeah, I got lucky because I'm still alive to tell the tale. Vanessa is not. The military is a huge problem for both sexual assault and harassment. I don't fucking know how to stress this enough anymore. It took a female soldier to get fucking murdered for this to get national attention. Do something. Help me do something. Share my story. Share all of our stories. They need to be heard. No one gets justice until we all do, and I'm not scared of them. I will never stop. So that's the end quote from Sadie. So that's the stories that I got when I requested them. Some of them are just as bad as that. I don't mean to like compare stories because with trauma in general, I would never hold it against someone because they haven't had their fucking legs and genitalia blown off. So I don't mean to compare them, but when you're an outsider looking in, some people are like, what? I mean, I've had someone from my unit that they're like, what the fuck? How does this happen? How does this failure happen? And It does. And the stories that I got are just like that. Like a lot of them. So let's touch on a misconception real quick. The perception of this stuff, and then I'm gonna get into the experiences. We'll talk about what some recommendations from the survivors have been for recovery for the person doing it, and then how we can help. And I'm 20 minutes into this, and I just want to point out some resources for anybody that has ever had to deal with this. Safehelpline.org is the military resource. There's a phone number, but if all you remember is Safe Helpline, you can Google that and you'll find someone that you can talk to that will get you put in touch. And then there's also rain.org, rain with two N's, like it's raining outside, so RAINN.org. That's that's for civilian. My suggestion is that if you report this stuff and nothing happens, go somewhere else. Everyone, I don't know what the laws are and all this stuff, because there's an entire UCMJ law that is in place, and there's all these service and unit-based rules and regulations that are quite obnoxious, but it's possible to contact a general's office or to do an IG complaint about things. I've seen it happen before, and if you are sexually abused and your chain of command is not doing something, that it definitely warrants bypassing anybody. It's always, theoretically good to go through your chain of command within the military, but if you fear your chain of command or you think that the environment is unsafe for that, then that's their fault, and they should be held accountable for that. So I would not just, I know we'll run into situations where it's very difficult to even want to report. If you do report, I'm just saying that if you report once and it doesn't go anywhere, I know how devastating that can be from an emotional standpoint, but it doesn't have to end there. And then at the very least, you can call the self-helpline and maybe they can push you in the right direction. So one of the misconceptions is that a woman must do something wrong in order for this kind of thing to happen, like she was drinking, wearing a sexy outfit, or that she's embarrassed about having sex with one of the dudes, and therefore, since she's embarrassed, wants to make allegations in order to save face. So that's all like your common bullshit that probably stems from a bunch of early 20-something year olds that are in the military, justifying behavior and shit like that. But I remember asking one of my friends, he kind of does, he'll probably be on the podcast, but he does work with at an Air Force base for emotional health and everything. I'm like, how does this, why did people think this is okay? And he was like, because their friends talk about it, or it's known when they get somewhere that this happens, or they hear about it happening. And who knows what the actual ideology is, but I mean, something must be going on to allow dudes to think this is okay, and then to have the responses that a woman is a slut or a hoe or something because she reports something. So that's a huge big misconception, that when a woman actually reports something and then there's all that bullshit is thrown at her, I can't imagine. That's devastating for them to deal with. You see a common problem where there's too much money and time put into training someone, including if they're in special operations, and then so we can't remove this person because we spent all this money on them, might be one of the justifications from a command that some people have run into. And how else can we punish this guy? And there's also this problem with the perception of emotional health. So, if you have something traumatic in your life occur, let's look at a completely different scenario. You have something traumatic in combat occur, and you start drinking, you start missing formations or showing up to work or something. You might have certain people that be like, well, if he was hurt, or he saw these things on deployment, or he's been in a lot of combat, he's been TBI'd, then maybe someone might understand. But if this happens to a woman and she's sexually abused, and then, she not inappropriately for her, but we have certain things that would be good for us and bad for us when in response to dealing with trauma or emotional health. And then using a lot of things that are numbing behaviors, especially when they have a negative effect on us, it could be drinking or substance abuse. If a woman gets involved in that stuff, then she's just seen as a shitbag. Because there's no sensitivity to the emotional health aspect to how this person is like trying to get out of this situation. And then imagine if if you were wounded in combat and you were like, I'm having fucking PTSD or all these emotional problems and shit like that. If that's what you're saying and you're a dude and you've been in a lot of combat, and then people are, they basically like say, no, you're lying. You're a fucking piece of shit. And they say all this negative stuff about you and don't believe you. How devastating would that be? Well, that's what's happening here with women and sexual abuse. So just to put it in perspective, nobody signs up for abuse. Sometimes you run around, you find some internet trolls that like, if there's a picture of me all fucked up from my injury, then they're like, well, what? You chose to do this. Like nobody fucking chooses to get blown up, and nobody chooses to go into the military to get abused. So there was a colonel. I don't know if she was in the guard or what. There was a woman, lieutenant colonel. I think she was retired, and she said some comment that was essentially maybe it was done tongue in cheek for her sake, but she was like, what did you expect? Like you're in the good old boy network, and you should expect this type of treatment, something along those lines. And then one of my friends who has had sexual abuse issues in the military, she's in response to that lady saying her thoughts were taken out of context, she said, what also can't be taken out of context? Shutting the fuck up. So if you're not really helping this conversation, then maybe that's pretty good advice, because justifying or not acknowledging that this is a problem is asinine. So it's not even something I feel like I need to address beyond this. All right, so when I tried to figure out how to talk about the experiences, didn't want to talk about someone's individual story, didn't want to mention units, don't even really want to mention branches, because I don't want to, in some communities, there's not a lot of women. And if you start talking about time frames or units, then it's clearly going to be that person. And some of these women are still active duty, and some of them still want to have a career despite the challenges they're in. So I just wrote some notes down, and they're more of like some pieces of information about the stories, and I might elaborate on them, but it's like 3 or 4 pages. So some of it might touch on the same notions, but let's go. These are the experiences. I can't tell you how many times someone said, I showed up to my unit and within 2 days I was raped. Kind of like Sadie's story that I read earlier. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. And so you find a lot of AIT, or I don't know what the Navy calls it. It's basically when you're getting your MOS or your AFSC training. AFSC is what you call a job in the Air Force, but it's like your designation for what your job is, and you go to like a basic training that's usually kind of general, and then you go to your job training. For example, in the infantry, that's all kind of lumped in for a full 16-week time frame, but usually you get like a 9-week basic training, and then you go to your AIT training, which the length of it is dependent on the specialty of the job. For example, it's like air traffic control school in the Air Force is like a year or some asinine time. So so there's something going on with like young people in the military that is influenced by the culture of older people in the military. So I'm not saying that like people are complicit, but what you're going to run into is that if you see this type of stuff happening, and this can go for really anything in life, but if you see this type of stuff from happening, you don't say anything, then you're perpetuating the problem, because it's creating the notion that is okay. And it might be like a sub abuse level type of thing. For example, let me give you an example. And all these examples are true, by the way. But if a male says something sexually inappropriate to a female, is at work, maybe in uniform, or not at work, who cares? But that happens, and like other dudes sitting around don't say anything. That I wouldn't, if this was happening to me, I wouldn't fucking feel safe. I mean, I'd start getting pissed and I'd start saying shit, but like when you're new or you're in a rank structure or there's people of higher rank, and you'll see this a lot, NCOs are abusing the shit out of their rank, is that you don't feel safe as a person that's subjected to abuse, but you also don't feel safe to like talk to anybody about it, because it's happening from the people that are supposed to be there to protect you. And what's a more fucked up notion in the world? Like this, of course, it's going to have some sort of extreme emotional impact on on any person, but in this case, the women who are subjected to sexual abuse. So when they are abused or they are raped, the evidence is lost. This happens on deployment or back home. Rape kits are literally just lost. Like, how does that even happen? How is something reported and then just all the evidence for it or all the substantiating stuff is just disregarded or misplaced, or it no longer exists, or it takes forever to process it? These are things you normally see in the military. Exceptionally long times to process seemingly very easy things to do. Sometimes it has to go up to a person's desk and they just have to sign it. And depending on what that person's workload is, I'm talking like an officer in this case. So yeah, officers, you're going to have, I'm enlisted, so there's already a perception of the disparity between us and this inherent caste system in the military, but it is what it is, and there are good officers and there are bad officers. And then regardless if you're good or bad, like sometimes the administrative bullshit you have to do as some sort of commander is that you don't get to certain things. But sexual abuse things should probably be expedited, because when nothing happens and there's no action taking place, like what the fuck is the person supposed to think? The woman that has had abuse imparted on her, what is she supposed to think? I can give you an example. Like when things don't happen for me throughout this process of being hurt and everything, when things don't happen, like it's kind of hard to feel like anybody really gives a fuck about me from a systemic perspective or sometimes a literal perspective. And that's just me. And I'm in a, people in the military or who care for me as civilians with respect to the military, they have like a noble notion in that endeavor with me because I was wounded in combat, because that's the perception in the military. And that's fine. I mean, it should be like that, because if your country tells you to go to war and you do and you get fucked up, they should take care of you. But they also shouldn't have a work environment that subjects you to bullshit in general, but especially abuse, sexual abuse in this case. And it's wrong. And when they're subjected to it and then they're not cared for, and then they're also like labeled as being the problem, that's really going to fuck with someone's mind. So I'm emphasizing these things because the awareness of what this structure does, even if no one is blatantly abusing the person, the kind of how the structure of how the system is set up, we're at least increasing awareness that there are faults in it. And this goes beyond sexual abuse, but like in this case, it obviously needs a fucking change for this. And then being aware of it. Like if you don't know this happens, I hope it changes your perception of it, regardless of who you are in the military. All right, so what you typically have when someone is abused is that they get socially ostracized. They're pushed out of like the community because they're treated like they did something wrong. And in SEER, which is the Survival, Escape, Resistance, and Evasion course that we go to, most special operations personnel go to it. When you're in a POW camp, there's this idea that you insulate instead of isolate, because if you isolate someone because they're being a shithead or they're being turned by the enemy, which has happened in the history of POW stuff, the best thing to do is to insulate them and do your best to keep them in the fold, because then they aren't left without, like if the enemy is the one who's going to care for them and nobody on the American side is, then we insulate those people instead of isolating them to protect them from the enemy. And so the social ostracization that occurs to a survivor of sexual abuse is weird and intense. And so the obvious answer to that is to not just label someone as a slut, hoe, problem, piece of shit, whatever, when they report a sexual allegations. In good faith, we have to assume that this is truthful, because we do know that there are people who are pieces of shit who falsely accuse. But those minor instances are not enough to completely ostracize a female once she has been abused, because that starts taking a toll. So one of the women told me that when she would go to work, nobody would talk to her in the entire unit. So nobody would talk to her. They treat her like shit. Some of them are made to stand at like parade rest in front of everyone in the actual like it's like a company area and a unit like where everybody has to pass through for the administrative stuff. So sometimes there are public forms of punishment and shame when people fuck up, and so this is one of them. This happens with people who have been sexually abused. So instead of giving them like maybe space or resources and time and help to try to work through emotional damage, they're not even believed, and then they're punished. And the punishment really fucks with people. It would fuck with me. If you're in the right and then you're being treated like you're in the wrong, that inherently would drive anyone nuts. And this is what happens. And then you get a fear from everyone because everyone just thinks all these bad things that I'm referencing. So you just have this intense fear and anxiety, and a lot of these people a lot of these women exhibit the same symptoms as someone who with severe PTSD. Guys that come back from combat or police officers that have been subjected to a lot of different stuff, and they're just constantly on edge and on guard. That's what you run into with women who are survivors of this abuse. I can't tell you that. I would say nearly every single instance of this happening, I would say over 90% of what I heard involved the command sweeping this under the rug. The command swept this under the rug. The command swept this under the rug. So if there was blatant evidence for rape, including blood all over the woman's walls from vaginal bleeding after a rape, or actual rape kits being done with sodomy or vaginal forced rape, the command sweeps that under the rug. I don't know what kind of chicken shit like command structure would occur, whether it's a first sergeant, a sergeant major, a command sergeant major, any kind of officer commander ranging from a new lieutenant to a captain to a major and so on. These are Air Force and Army and I think Marine Corps terms. I don't know all the Navy terms, but like anytime the command sweeps things under the rug, like that's bullshit. So some of the things that have happened and these are going to kind of jump around because I was reading different responses from women, trying to take notes and going to another woman, so we might like kind of bounce around. So just hang on and stay with me. So you get a blatant groping, like sometimes hands down clothes, shirts, pants, whether there's alcohol involved or not. You get propositions for sex in uniform at work. You get more propositions for sex when there's the perception that this person is a slut. So one of the things was one person was at her unit. She was there just for a few days. There's an E9, E87, sits her down and like starts yelling at her for having sex with an E6. And if you're not in the military, all these E's and O's thing, it's just enlisted ranking, goes up to 9, and then officer ranking. So if I say E6, then E5 is the first NCO, the non-commissioned officer. So they're someone who's supposed to be in charge of people and there to take care of people. So you see, in this case, she was sat down and like you had sex with this person. They were basically yelling at her, and she was both her, moral and religious views would yield her to not have sex with this person, and she did not do it. And instead of even being asked about it, she was basically getting yelled at. And I've actually had this happen to me, where I've been sat down and told I did something wrong and it didn't happen. And there's nothing you can do but just sit there and listen to this person. And it takes a special type of commander to, if someone has allegations against them, and you could sit them down and be like, hey, why don't you tell me what you think this is about? Or why don't you tell me, at least let me hear your side of the story. When I actually have had a commander do that when someone did something maybe that they shouldn't have, but he came in and was like, hey, why did this happen? And there was a set of circumstances that explained it, and he's like, okay, got it, and then helped move the process forward for the sake of, in this case, a guy. So anyway, you have different responses from people in positions of authority and command, and if you just assume someone is guilty, like that's fucking not how the legal system works anyway. And so someone might turn that around and be like, well, we have to, the person who was accused is innocent until proven guilty. But when you have someone reporting a very heinous crime that is a crime anywhere, whether you're civilian or military, about rape or sexual abuse or even just saying fucked up shit to someone, that has to be taken seriously, because not taking it seriously allows this culture to exist to begin with, which lets it perpetuate and get worse and fester over time to the point where people are blatantly motherfucking raping people, and it's fucked up, man. Shit. Let me just take a breath here. If a woman is attractive in the military and she's promoting or doing well in her job, then there's comments about her, having sex with people for like some sort of gain. And whether that happens like in actuality or truthfully or not is irrelevant, because the most of the time that's what women are subjected to. Everything is reduced to looks and gender. And one of the women was like, I just hate that my time in the military, everything was reduced to my looks and my gender. All I wanted to do was go there and do a fucking job. And my emotion is the emphasis here, not hers. That's what anybody would ever want. Just let me do my job, and don't put all this stupid bullshit in the way of me doing my job. And in this case, the culture problem results in everything being reduced to a gender. There's even like essentially gaslighting, which is, efforts made to believe that the person is. Some people were like, I was questioning whether or not this even fucking happened based on how I was being treated at work. That's pretty sure that's like the epitome of gaslighting right there. Assault is the norm in some places, and then there's a shame to even talk about it. There's even the shame to talk about a verbal incident. So when an individual in explicit detail tells you how they're going to have sex with you to your face, and you're a woman and that's a dude, and there are people around, those people, A, don't say anything, and B, because there was no actual physical abuse, that woman is made to believe that she is ashamed to talk about a verbal thing because it's not a big deal. But that's still fucked up, So here's some things from a behavioral health provider. Observations from this particular individual. As you get higher in the chain of command, it appears like those chains of command care less about people and more about how everything makes them look, how the data makes them look. And as an enlisted person, you know when those officers exist. And sometimes it's not really like, it's also kind of the structure. Generally speaking, when a chain of command has to look down and be like, is everything functioning, or is the readiness occurring? There's all these metrics, spreadsheets that display all these metrics. And so if it, for example, MedPros is in the Army, it's like you have to do vision and annual checkups for certain things, including dental stuff. And so if you have people that are red on those things, then you look fucked up as a team and you look fucked up as a company. And then therefore, like, you're going to have someone on your ass to do those things because it makes you look fucked up to the people that are higher than you. And sometimes there are circumstances that prevent people from doing that. And usually it's the operation tempo, but this is all for a different podcast. So my point is that, it's not unique to sexual abuse when the chain of command seems to not give a shit. And if you're in a chain of command, you might be defensive right now in your mind. But if the perception exists that you don't give a shit, then that's enough. Even if you do give a shit, what you actually do or don't do is what actually matters. And then in this case, like the sexual abuse shit, like it's difficult to work through from an admin perspective, and it's difficult for the person who has been abused, but it's probably like, if I had to guess, just knowing the military, it's probably very difficult to work through in general. And it's probably a little overly complicated. Perhaps it might be able to be streamlined. I don't know, because I'm not like a sharp representative, that's what we call it in the Army. I'm not any kind of victim advocate from a formal perspective. Maybe I'll interview one of these people one day and they can provide some fidelity in their opinion on it. But in general, we should always be doing some after action reviews on anything that happens in the military. And the Army is really big on AARs. And so we should be regularly reviewing our system, our organizational approach to things. And if they're not streamlined, how can we do that? Like, does it need to go up this chain of command and back down? Or can this memo be deleted? Or can like there's so many regulations that it gets in the way of doing things sometimes. And that can be frustrating for when you're a person on the ground. So if you're butthurt because it appears that you as the chain of command are not doing shit, then do something different with your chain of command to create the environment. If I don't know what the hell you're supposed to do. I'm not a commander. Fuck. It's difficult. But like, I would want every person that's underneath me to know that, like, hey, I understand that this system can be fucked up sometimes. I understand that you can be subjected to things that you shouldn't be, whether it's abuse or that you might have problems. And I want to empower my lower enlisted, like my NCOs and my lower officers to help you and to be able to take care of these things, because any commander they can't like be fully involved in everything. But the big cases, maybe they fucking should be. And then if there's poor oversight at the lower levels, because what we want to do is everybody should be an adult in the military, and then you should be treated like an adult. But we all know, if you've been in the military, that somebody poops their pants and everybody wears a diaper, and turds float to the top of the water. You get those big old turds and they float to the top. And so that kind of happens in chain of command. And sometimes it does happen because the people, this is my opinion, but you see this across the force, is that people who get fed up with stupid bullshit in the military are going to leave, and they're not going to be in the senior positions later. So we'll talk about retention in a future episode regarding, maybe my unit or anything. But I know that there are all these women, most of the women that I talked to were like, I just didn't want to deal with this anymore. And some of them would just want to get away from the fucking whole legal battle of trying to like prove that something happened. And sometimes it takes 3 years to have anything initiate from a legal perspective regarding sexual abuse. And all they want to do is get the fuck out because they're ostracized by their unit. Everyone's treating them like shit. Like, what do you expect out of them? Like, they're not going to stay in. So you're not going to get like your higher ranking women to actually start getting into command positions. And, that's a little bit of my opinion. If you disagree with it, I honestly kind of don't care at this point. But I'm just looking at the notes. You see a lot of drunk sleep rape. And so one of the major problems with all this stuff is when alcohol gets involved, there's a lot of shame with the individual. Like, they feel like they did it, or the people are like, no one will believe you because you were drunk. And there's women who like wake up and someone who they are not in a relationship with, or maybe they are in a relationship with, who cares? But someone that they did not invite in is inside of them, whether it's a hand or genitals and stuff. So there's rape going on. So there's a fear of reporting when witnesses don't say anything. I kind of mentioned that earlier. Sometimes it takes witnesses to like save someone who has been abused. Like, no, you've been having sex with this guy, and the roommates, actually, no, nobody's ever been in here. And it takes like another roommate to say something in order to alleviate the accusations on someone who's been abused. So not only could you be abused, but you could be accused of doing shit you didn't do on top of that. Like that. See, it can be complicated for an individual, and then their effort in wanting to pursue reporting or anything diminishes because literally, almost verbatim sentence, I have no faith in the reporting system after my experience, is what one woman told me. Let that sink in. You see a lot of NCO abuse for getting denied with sexual advances too, which is I don't know what that's classified as, but it is under the umbrella of fucked up. That could include NCO abuse for getting denied sexual advances. Could include assigning the woman extra duty, publicly humiliating them, quizzing them on tasks, and then punishing them when they don't know it. So like giving them more attention than that they would another soldier, airman, marine, sailor, etc., giving them more attention over someone else in order to like fuck with them because they got denied. And then also just like a lot of fucking creepy shit, like social media stalking, or this includes officers, by the way. So anybody that was butthurt earlier, like sometimes officers or people in positions of power or authority are the ones doing the thing. Sometimes there are OICs of the sexual harassment, whatever, and they're the ones regularly sexually harassing or sexually abusing. All these terms, harassment, assault, abuse, they're all, the umbrella of sexual abuse is very, so I just keep trying to say that because it's very broad, because with normal law, assault means the threat of something, and then battery is the actual thing happening. But from what I did some searching, and sexual assault seems to imply that something happened, so I'm just going to say abuse in general. So if I slip and say harassment, I'm just implying abuse because I don't know what the hell harassment means in these terms here. But I talked about the entire unit hating a woman for reporting or, getting punished. Usually the woman's moved away, by the way, instead of like the person who did the abusing. So that's also weird. Sometimes they want that because the unit is treating them like such shit. But like, let's say I'm at work and there's like not only an incompetent Green Beret, but also a piece of shit Green Beret and an asshole Green Beret. All right. And let's say because he's an asshole, we get into some sort of verbal altercation, and whether it results in like a fight or not, theoretically. And let's say I was on that team before that person, and then let's say that I get moved away from the team after that event when that guy's the piece of shit. I'd be fucking livid, right? That's my fucking team. Like, I have influenced that culture. I'm a part of that team. If I'm part of the person, I train some of the younger guys on the team, which I did before the second deployment. So if I get moved, that'd be kind of fucked up. And that's what happens with women. When they're abused, they're the ones that are moved. So I don't know how you're supposed to help that, because sometimes it helps because the unit is so shitty to the person. Because there's one instance where a commander actually took the woman aside and was like, hey, and they were very compassionate. And every time that a woman who's been abused is shown compassion, it almost breaks their heart. Sorry. It almost breaks their heart because someone is actually like listening to them, It's like such an exception that it's so important for them that there's someone is listening to them that is in the position that can do something for them. And it always means so much to the person that was abused. And that's really telling to me. But in one instance, a commander was like, yeah, hey, I thought that dude was a creep this whole time. I'm going to take care of you. And then it's reported, and then boom, like the unit becomes aware of it, because you can't really keep secrets from a unit. Just keep that in mind for everybody. And then there are only so many women in these units, so you know what it's about, and there's usually the rumors or the facts are spreading before this stuff is even reported. So then, even though the commander had really great intentions and was very compassionate to this particular woman, the unit just ostracized her and treated her like complete shit. And this is, let me try to articulate on some of the impact of this, because this turns into people wanting to kill themselves. That where literally women are like, I would fear and hate going to work so much, I thought about crashing my car into a fucking tree every day I drove in. Or wanting to just commit suicide. And then the mention of the finally saying something that I feel like killing myself and then as a result of the situation, that is the fucking trigger that finally creates a response, which is fucked up. Because then the military's response to suicidal ideations is such a way that it is problematic to the people who are suicidal. This has happened more than once. It's happened with Green Berets who later killed themselves. It's happened with people that also didn't kill themselves, but when your guns are taken away, your weapons are taken away, it's like the ultimate shame thing for someone. This person's emotional state is such that they can't be trusted with their weapons, even though they've had them for the last, 6 months or a year or whatever the fuck the deployment is, or whenever they've been to the range at home. So I don't know what you're supposed to do. I don't know how many instances where someone's like, hey, I'm suicidal, and then They use their gun. It's you. My point is that taking the weapons away is a trigger, and so having a discussion with the person instead of like treating them like they are a criminal is important. Because in basic training, someone's suicidal, then you take away their shoelaces. They're on, you have a fire guard where they are watched 24/7, and it's kind of a pain in the ass for everybody else because you have to assign someone just to be with that person all the time. And so there's a stigma against it. Is the point is that everybody's like, this guy's fucking us because he's like this. And therefore now we have to like watch him or babysit him. So it's weird because I don't know what you're supposed to do in basic, but in a regular unit, like you can talk to an adult. Hey, like we're concerned. It's okay if you're like someone suffering. It's okay for someone to be like, hey, we're concerned like that you have your weapons. Let's talk about that. And instead of that conversation not occurring, the alternative is like, hey, we're going to take your guns away. And then that's literally a trigger. That is the catalyst sometimes for actual suicide. So just file that away. That's maybe a conversation for another time. One person told me a unit support system could help because there's supposed to be a legal support individual. Like it's usually called a victim advocate, but it's someone that is supposed to help find the resources and help someone through the legal process. You see victim advocates in civilian life too, whether it's for kids that are orphans or in social work situations. You can see it for sexual abuse as civilians. So victim advocate is not a new term, but someone mentioned that maybe it might be useful to have one in a unit that could help. Like one of them was like, if someone just was with me when I was at work to help them feel normal, that would have been huge. All right, here's one of the biggest things. So if you've kind of not been listening, you're driving to work or something, start listening to this part. Tip, almost across the board, there's no time allowed to someone who's been abused. There's no work time, so time during their normal daily work schedule to conduct legal activity or behavioral health stuff. And a lot of times they're forced to go either to counseling or to something that might be considered therapy or to follow up with legal to try and find where their rape kit got lost and shit like that. They're not allowed to do that during their shift, and so they have to do that on top of their shift. So many of you may not know this, but in the regular military, sometimes you're showing up at like 6 a.m. to work, and then you're not leaving till like 5 p.m. So you've got like this 11-hour day that is usually wildly unproductive and that you could really be sent home at 2, but there's this like train to time standard as opposed to like accomplish tasks and accept the fact that 100% of your tasks are never going to be complete in a fucking unit or on deployment. So you have this idea that like skipping work to do anything, you're like kind of shunned, and that's just a normal thing. But so now someone is abused, and then they're not afforded any time during their schedule, which is usually a 12-hour workday, to go and do any of this shit. So they have to spend they're already drained and depleted because they're probably being treated like shit when they're at work, and then they don't have the time to do it. It's just one of those things that goes under the that's fucked up umbrella, right? Usually, all right, we got like another page of this. Usually when people are abused, they're young and new women to the military, and they're usually socially alone because they're not ingrained in the community. But what you do see is that when there is a good community and there is a good family element to a unit, whether it's a platoon or whatever it's called in whatever branch, when it's inherent that there's a close community, they stand up for each other. So I've heard stories of a woman who's like getting abused by a person from another unit, and the women or the dudes are like, hey, you can imagine what happens. Like, hey, motherfucker, you need to stop doing that. And they stand up for him, stand up for the woman who's being abused. And then she felt that she had a family and a home. And that's what's and kind of inherently what you're supposed to have. But imagine if you don't get stood up for. I don't know. Like if you're a special operations guy and you're still listening, hopefully you are. And say you go out with your friends from your team. You go out with your team in a public thing, whether you're at home or you're on a training trip, and you start getting your ass beat, and your team just is like, oh shit, he's getting his ass beat, and they just stand there and watch, and then they leave, and then they don't even really help you, and then they make fun of you for it. So first off, if you're on a team, like there's this like team thing with a lot of teams, especially in male dominated areas, whether it's football or special operations, that if you get one of your dudes gets in a fight, like you don't even care what happened, you're defending them. Or in my case, I'll literally pick people up that are on my team and carry them out of situations, out of bars and stuff to avoid exacerbating the situation, right? So imagine if that doesn't happen. Imagine you're getting abused and then nobody does shit, and then basically you're the punching bag after that, and they mock you for it. That's the kind of shit we're looking at. So, the survivors deserve, one person said grace, but I would say compassion. Compassion is not, I'd say it's not an inherent element in the military. It's not, because it's not inherent in normal society, and you get this weird kind of subculture within the military. But regardless, like if anybody exhibits compassion in these cases, whether you're in the chain of command or not, for someone who's been abused, it's a really big deal, and it's really helpful. Because otherwise, without compassion, you're running into guilt, shame, anxiety, fear, vulnerability, and then helplessness because nobody is there to help you. I think I'm hammering the shit out of this point, and it's really unfortunate, right? So I'm going to kind of push through these things so I don't repeat myself. But leadership always assumes guilt instead of hearing someone's explanation. I kind of talked about that earlier. Reputations are ruined. That's huge. And just the allegation of being someone who sleeps with anything can ruin a reputation, especially in environments that there are not a lot of women, or that the units, whether they're doing a good or bad job, the units are trying to incorporate women into their organizational structure. Anything having to do with any kind of sexual thing, whether it's even just sleeping around in the unit, can be something that ruins reputations. So there's like this distinction between like personal life and professional life that it doesn't really occur. And then, of course, the abuse muddies those waters of actual sexual abuse. Looking at the notes. Survivors don't believe any of this is going to change, so they just get out of the military. Some of them do, and some of them that have talked to me do, and they are actually on the forefront of trying to influence the change in their organizational structure. But for the most, across, if you had to like generalize, most of them don't think it's going to change, and they get out because it follows them and doesn't go away. It's a stain on their career. So if someone reports, so already it's a big deal if someone's reporting. Just keep that in mind. If you can understand if you can stop and kind of empathize with someone that might be in this position. I've kind of given you some analogies of being a guy and being in a different situation and then having injustice applied to you. So now just if you're able to imagine being sexually abused and being a female, and you're able to kind of empathize and show compassion and kind of do an exercise of like, man, what would that feel like? That's kind of what I think I've been doing so far. And now imagine having to actually having the gumption to report, overcoming the fear in order to report a sexual abuse, and then doing that once would be difficult. You know, just to give you kind of an analogy, like when I talk about getting blown up, I'm an expert at compartmentalizing. Like that's almost, it's basically part of my training, but it's also part of my personal history. So I'm really good at that. So I can in intimate detail tell you about my experience in getting blown up and like cutting my own clothes off and trying to be a participant in the treatment. Sometimes I talk about it with someone that I feel that I can be vulnerable with, like with a close friend, and there's a lot of tears involved in that, or like a lot of fucking intense terror and fear and shit that you guys aren't going to necessarily hear when I'm sharing it with however many people listen to this. So imagine like being in this position with sexual trauma, and then having to tell the story once. And then what often happens in this process is that they have to tell the story multiple times, like 5, 6, up to 10 plus times, just because like the next commander is like, well, I want to hear about this. And then they make them sit, like, just read the fucking report, and that should be good enough. Because like a sexual abuse and like the removal of innocence and the law, like all the emotions that go into that are going to get triggered every single time she has to tell that story. And that'd be rough, man. I've told my story, hundreds of times, but it was always with the fucking mask on. I've told it to many generals, many people with neckties that, work in Washington, and it's just done with a mask, because what the fuck else am I going to do, But imagine, like, that triggering an intense emotional response, and then you have to do it multiple times. Like, isn't it enough that they report it once? And, like, just, I guess the one thing that can be done is to involve the person who's been abused in that process. Like, hey, I understand this is, like, a difficult thing to talk about. We'll go through as much as you want or can. Sometimes there are some follow-up questions. If you're not ready for them, that's okay. If you can look, you kind of indicate when you there are things you can do to work around this, where you don't have to have that person tell the story multiple times, and I don't know, treat it like a deposition or something, where it's like factual and it's sworn into telling the truth, so that they don't have to fucking do it in court. Because a lot of people don't want to face that person in court that abused them. That intense fear usually means that it gets dropped or that it never goes to court. And that's really fucked up, because then there's no accountability. That's the problem. There's no accountability in the person that does it. And the survivors had to tell me this. It's not that I didn't know, but it's just that they had to reiterate it. But when someone does this type of thing, performs an act of sexual abuse, it's not going to be the only time. It's usually not just once. It's going to keep fucking happening. And when there's no accountability, it just allows that problem to perpetuate, or the culture is such that it is acceptable, or there's immunity to being punished for something like that. And all of those things still fit in the category of being fucked up. So, So again, in all these bad examples of how things are handled, guys will blame the girl. Hey, you should have locked your door when you were drunk. Like, what the fuck? Like, why does anyone have to live in fear of locking their door or they're going to get raped? Like, that's fucked up. And then, like, bullying, like, if you report this, you're going to regret it. That kind of intimidation stuff. And then, yeah, that's kind of like I don't know, a random look at a bunch of the experiences. And I tried to generalize things in order to, like, bring them to light, just so you can kind of know about it. All right, so what can someone do when they're abused? And I'm not the expert on this, but this is coming from people who were abused and they did move through it. And some of them have years off their life. Some of them had to go through intense therapy. This is just what some of them said. So finding a trusted source for help. So some people trust religion or their faith in God and stuff. Other people need to have someone in their life, especially if they're isolated and not insulated in a particular unit. They have to find someone to trust. And so sometimes that can be a chaplain. Chaplain's not my thing, but they are there for things like this. Anytime you talk to anybody for behavioral health within the military, I think it's important to ask what it is they're obligated to report, because the UCMJ subjects active duty behavioral health people to a different set of things. So if you're doing something like a coping or numbing behavior that is against UCMJ, then how all this works, you can and might be punished for it, because some of the things they have an obligation to report. And I'm sure there's some clarification there from an active duty behavioral health, but the stigma of how behavioral health and military functions is such that I don't trust the active duty ones. So personally, I don't use them, but I hope in this case, someone who's been abused can. There are many resources for mental health access that you don't have to pay for if it's from a civilian. I'll follow up with that and try and post about it, because I don't have it off the top of my head, but they do exist out there. So maybe doing some asking around or something, or maybe calling that self-help line might be a conduit to finding those things. Finding a therapist, a counselor, obviously someone that you can confide in and actually start working through, because what we find in general is that with trauma or emotional health challenges or problems, is that numbing or comforting behavior can start taking over, doing things that numb from having to process and deal with the actual trauma. And I've talked about this on some other episodes, but numbing behavior is incredibly common. Basically, everybody does it, and whether or not it's actually contributing to their wellness in a negative way is maybe the thing to be aware of and to explore for an individual. So some of the things that the women have reported in these instances of being sexually abused is, becoming an alcoholic, substance abuse. This is almost touchy, so I'm not generalizing. Just take it for what it is. That with sexual abuse, sometimes it skews sexual behavior in such a way that, like, maybe serial dating might be one of the responses, and so that is something that people in the unit will use as like she's a slut, so she's clearly lying about the abuse. So it's just, I'm pointing out one of the challenges, but I'm just pointing out that, like, anything can be numbing behavior. Shopping, those classic addictions like gambling or drugs, but eating, desserts, like all these things can be numbing behavior. And so identifying them as such and kind of working through them, sometimes especially with trauma, you can't do that stuff on your own. So finding trauma-based therapists is also good. And then there's also talk therapy, which is counseling-based. And depending on who you talk to, obviously there's all these different paradigms of therapy. Sometimes people say that, like, talk therapy isn't enough to work through abuse, and sometimes it works very well for people. So you just have to kind of, it's difficult, but like when you're subjected to trauma, if like using myself as an example is any solace, that you have to kind of, it does require effort. And so I can tell you as an example that being allowed to do that in my terms is very beneficial for me. And so if a woman is not allowed to do that, like not allowed to take time off, and let's say she has kids too, then there's no time to do it. She's got to go home and take care of like 2 kids or something. Like, just be sensitive or compassionate to a particular scenario with an individual. Also, one of the women wanted to point out that functioning well in the job is not indicative of being okay or like having, processed the trauma. So her opinion was kind of like, hey, leadership, if they're noticing someone is still performing well in their job, maybe they should just regularly check up on them or have discussions with them. Because in the military, the toughness mentality is a thing, and no one ever wants to take a knee from their job. And sometimes the workaholic is how you numb from it. So just be aware of it. And then for someone who has been abused, actively doing what you can to bring relief, or whatever brought you relief before the event. Like some people, it's going to the gym. It can be hobbies. And believe me, I get it. You don't get a lot of hobbies when you have a very busy type of job in the military, because you have a lot of obligation and lack of time to do anything to build your own identity. But whatever you can do that can mitigate, again, like my paradigm with emotional health, if you listen to, I think the second episode, is doing things like meditating, yoga, exercise, journaling, like doing your own processing on top of whatever overt therapy you need to do. It's just I will, like, if it's any help from someone who has a different type of trauma, that like it's okay that you have challenges after trauma, especially sexual trauma, and that would be normal. It'd be fucking weird if you didn't. I've had people point that out to me, and it's obvious for everybody else. Like, yeah, if you got raped and didn't have like challenges afterwards, that'd be fucking weird. Like, so it's okay, and then it's okay to ask for help. I hope that's a resonating theme in most things I do. And then just try to approach it from a holistic perspective. Doing things that like interfere with your sleep is so important, and it may be hard to sleep when you have trauma for a variety of reasons, or if you're drinking really hard, or you're taking whatever drugs you're prescribed, it's going to be difficult to sleep. So I would kind of steer you away from drinking. I think drinking's not great anyway. I think it's a horrible aspect of the military culture. This isn't really a place to go on a soapbox about it, but obviously we find a lot of these sexual abuse problems occur when there's drinking. So it's not that the problem is that people drink irresponsibly, and then inherently the drug kind of like makes people dicks. But like, you're not like, if you're committing crimes when you're drunk, then like it's it's not solely the thing, but that thing is complicating things. So in this case, I'm saying that drinking is something that people get in trouble for all the time in the military, but it's part of the culture to do. You even have social events in order to try and like improve morale or some bullshit. But these social events happen at bars a lot. So just something to think about. And then also some of these stories I'm talking about, they happen during those events, those like drinking social events that are put on by the unit that are at like public places or whatever. So anyway, just approach everything from a holistic, approach everything for your therapy and your progression as a holistic response. And please keep in mind that you're like, I've avoided the word victim here. Hopefully that helped, but like victim can kind of feel helpless, and sometimes you're a victim of the system, and that's okay. And then survivor is usually like something, it's like empowering that like, this doesn't define me, which is difficult when you have trauma. And I'm speaking from experience. It's hard not to be defined by being savagely raped or being fucking blown up. It's difficult, especially when when you have the literal or emotional scars every day from that thing. All right, so one of the things I hear from guys all the time is, how can we help? Like, some people are like, what the fuck? I didn't know this was a thing. How the fuck can I help? Like, this is awful. And so it's understandable because you can be shielded from, like, granted, are all the units in the military doing all the shit that I've been talking about for the last hour and 15 minutes? I don't know. But maybe, because a unit is a very broad thing. Like, you can have a culture in a particular company or something that is different than another company. So there are people who do this well. There are people who probably do this compassionately. I did ask for general responses, but I got the ones of the people who were abused. And so the sampling of the stories I'm hearing are not necessarily like, yes, there is this issue. I did something to address it, and then everything worked out very well for me, and everybody did the right thing. Like, I didn't ask for, hey, if you've been sexually abused and all this, so maybe the sampling is kind of skewed, but my interpretation of this from being in the military for 7 years, and then hearing these stories and kind of knowing how this works, there's a culture problem that results in this being okay. And from my perspective as a dude hearing all this without having the recommendations how we can help from a survivor, how we go about everything is going to influence it, right? Like, we influence our own culture. I think, like, someone, like, let's say the Secretary of the Army, you can't like him implement something that's going to change sexual harassment in the military. It has to be talked about, and it has to be acknowledged, and there has to be an awareness, and there has to be like everybody thinking about how to improve this. And so if you're of the opinion like, yeah, this type of stuff is fucked up, what can we do about it? Then what you can do about it is don't just be about it, do it. Like, or I don't know what the stupid ass phrase is. If you want to be about it, be about it. I don't know. Like, thinking this is wrong and then not doing something about it, it doesn't mean that you're complicit, but it does allow things to perpetuate. And that goes for really anything. It doesn't mean you have to be annoying, because your interpersonal relationship capabilities will dictate the response that you get. So hopefully, like, for example, I don't think I've been annoying during all this. And if I talk to someone that has a disagreement with me on anything, then the way I talk to them is going to influence how they respond to me. And at the very least, enough of these stories are happening to the point where someone fucking got murdered. So just keep that in mind. So we have to influence the culture that, like, women are not, obviously they don't exist. It's not a meat market for us to have sex with. And generally speaking, you don't really want to eat where you poop. That's like a medical thing, also kind of like a logical thing, but then it's also used in terms of, like, you don't want to have sex with people in your unit where you go to work. So you don't want to, like, start blending the two. So generally, it's probably better that if someone's in your unit or your specific chain of command, to not really get involved with that person. And it happens. Sometimes there are rules against that from happening with NCOs and lower enlisted and such. I think that it can happen in a responsible way, but if you're a dude, you're probably you don't have to avoid women. You don't have to pretend like they're a plague or like they're like a dementor that you can't interact with because some kind of interaction is going to be perceived as anything. Because it all goes down on your interpersonal relations. Like, if you treat someone with respect, they're going to respect you too, and like if you Like in a command environment, when someone new gets there, what typically happens is that all like dudes are looking her up on social media and like placing bets on who's going to fuck her first. That's obviously fucked up. That's obviously like a toxic culture. And so just if you want to do something about this, then not allowing that to happen is part of it. And dudes who are around dudes, and there's like a locker room environment in certain types of teams, and that kind of persists sometimes artificially into the military because it lasts longer in age groups as you get older. Maybe in combat arms, as an example, you have more of a male-dominated culture, and so you're used to saying certain things. And sometimes the women are involved in that too. And they're like, yeah, it's obviously different than civilian life, but I mean, my male friends say the same thing. Like, one of my buddies who used to be in the military hung out with my team once, and we're making fun of each other because it's funny. And he's like, I miss this. Just like, and I was like, what? And he's like, just hanging out and just being like a dude with people and just being kind of absurd. But that doesn't mean we have to be actually mean. Like, if I say something ridiculous, like that's clearly not right about someone, I'm like, oh, look, like it's like one of my friends who's 6'5", and I'm like, look at his little baby hands, like his little delicate hand. Like, I'm obviously being a turd. Like, and then if I want to make fun of a female if I have the rapport to make fun of her, like, I'm not going to like say weird sexual shit. So it's still okay to like envelop them into the fold of the community. And some of them are way funnier than I am regarding doing this type of uncouth behavior, but it doesn't have to become like a sexual thing. And, whatever the assumption of any kind of abuse being allowed like that, I'm not quite sure how you nip that in the bud, because I'm an E6 staff sergeant in the Army, might be promoted, we'll see. But point is that I've never like just had normal conventional military people underneath me. I've been on an ODA. I have had regular Army folks that I've been in charge of at various points in my career. I've had females at my outposts before, and I don't know, this doesn't have to be hard, but I guess I think it's helpful if you speak up in a way against this type of shit. Like, and sometimes you have to steer a culture in a direction, because if you're just blatantly against it, then you get written off because people are so in-group, out-group nowadays. But I just hope that the fact that maybe like certain types of us are gonna say this is fucked up and shouldn't happen, that it's gonna inspire people to kind of have some sort of integrity about the issue and actually hold people accountable. Yeah. So here's how we can help from the survivor's perspective, which is essentially what I just said. The first one: create a safe environment for survivors. Like, allow them to believe that this isn't going to happen, and if for some reason, God forbid it does, that they're going to be taken care of. Trust is needed to report. So why the fuck would someone want to report something if they don't believe that person they're going to tell it to is going to take it seriously? How we talk about gender roles influences it. So kind of talked about that from a male perspective. And I'd encourage you guys, whether it's like wherever you're at in the military, informally or formally, outside of work or at work, discuss these things so that you can kind of understand what your local climate is on it. And be willing to hear like an opposing argument. And if you're wanting to help and then people are resistant to it, just maintain your emotional composure and your use of logic and your interpersonal relationship capability, and continue to try and influence the culture that you're in, and do what you got to do. I don't know. I can't like give you all the answers because I don't know what your situation's like, but it takes effort. If you're confided to, if someone who's been abused confides what happened to them to you, there's some level of trust there that they're actually telling you, or they're breaking down and losing their fucking mind and they're just telling whoever's there, and that's okay too. So if you're being told, it's not your job to investigate or share the story. It's not your job to investigate the thing. Just listen and help with resources. Help them find the appropriate resources and just listen. I struggle with this too, but you can do things. You can listen to someone and just like be there and just be an ear. I'm not saying to do these next things. I'm just saying, like, in life, if someone tells you about problems they have, you could be like, you could try to fix them. You could just give them consolation. You have certain responses, but in this case, just listen and help them find the resources they need to in order to move forward, whatever the person who's been abused wants to do. Ideally, it would be reporting, but I understand why they may not want to. Take allegations seriously. Like, believing a story from a woman when she's been abused is fucking huge. And that's me hitting the table. Like, what's upsetting about that is that the standards are so low that just being believed is something that will just be so important to somebody who's been abused. And that should sink in for a second, because that's fucked up. That just being believed is like a huge deal. All right, so that's kind of those are some of the things that the survivors have told me that we can do to help. By no means is this like the end of this discussion. I'm not quite sure what I can do. I'm going to be taking a break from it. I had a few days of a break before doing this episode, and I reviewed the information that people sent me this morning and kind of reread through all of it. But I mean, there are women that are getting physically abused, whether it's spousal abuse or not. There are women like literally getting their fucking head split open. Women who are raped. It doesn't have to be like this, but it is. And this is an acknowledgement of it. I wish it wasn't like this. But the fact that I have listened to these things, and maybe that I'm kind of externally, outwardly talking to whoever's listening, it has made a change on, I'm going to not put myself in a work environment again, because I'm not going to work for anybody ever again. But if I'm around this type of thing in the future, I know that I would do something different about it. And I guess the best way to think about this is if it was your daughter, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, your friend, someone you went to high school with. Would it have to take their picture being on the news because they got fucking murdered for this to change? Would it require horrible fucking tragedy in order to be a catalyst for change? And that's what's happened. So, look, there's a lot of injustice in the world, a lot of fucked up stuff, and sometimes it's overt, like you actually have infractions for a thing. So someone doing a racist, violent act against another person, or someone sexually abusing someone. So that is a problem. But what's also a problem is usually that the systems in place that result in something racist happening or something sexual abuse happening, the structure of things allows those things to happen. And in this case, if I had to sum this up, it would be a general culture problem in the military. I think that's across the board. That's going to be hard for some people to hear, especially the people who are kind of true believers in the military. But I think there's a culture problem. And the two symptoms of it, which are interrelated in this particular episode, are sexual abuse and emotional health. I'm going to talk about emotional health in the future. But there is definitely a culture problem with how the genders are playing nice together. And in my opinion, as we have the first Green Beret, the first woman Green Beret graduating from the course and reporting to a unit, I don't think it's the problem of the woman, and we will see if it is. But there are lots of women who work in special operations, And there are some women, if you followed like the Instagram that I've posted about, that are hardcore badasses that accomplish awesome things in war and unfortunately get killed or something like that. So we hear about their story. And I know women in my unit that are fucking awesome and that are deploying and conducting real world operations alongside Green Berets, and there's not a fucking issue. So there are issues in special operations, but we also, I hope we're leading the charge in this, but I don't know what the fuck my point is. The point is that there's a culture problem, and even if it's not blatantly in front of you, it exists somewhere, and I hope that God special operations is better, but I do know that it is happening across special operations. So do what you can for like my brothers and sisters that are serving under that soft umbrella, and then also my brothers and sisters, treat everyone like a brother and a sister. And when someone does something wrong regarding sexual abuse, the lack of accountability will perpetuate it and allow it to continue. And I think, if I had to guess, the environment around this through all realms of the military are going to be very, very different after the Vanessa Guillen thing, because it's also kind of riding that wave of the racial injustice in society, that other injustices just so happen to be coming to a head at the same time. And so this sexual abuse topic is being talked about, or at least in the news enough where people are hearing about it. And if you haven't even heard about some of this fucked up shit that's happening and you listen to this, now you have. What I would say to anybody in the military, whether we're talking about sexual abuse, emotional health, or just culture in general, is if you stop and think about the components of what is going on in your particular units or your regiments or like as a whole, the military, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What are we supposed to be doing? Where can we improve? We don't need to pat ourselves on the back about things we're doing well, because what we do well is that we go to war and we win, typically. Well, when you have an end state that is you have a defined criteria of victory, and we can usually work towards that. When you don't have that, it's a problem. But what we typically have is we do the war stuff properly, and that there, at least it's structured in a way that we can get by and succeed doing that. It may not be the most efficient, and I don't know how you're supposed to do that, but when we're talking about efficiency or culture improvements, like, you have to ask yourself at all levels how that can be improved, and all levels have to be open to receiving the information from the other levels. And in particular, I'm implying that the lower levels have a voice and are relevant because we're usually the people on the ground, and the opinions of the people on the ground are relevant to the people that are higher in chains of command. And furthermore, even though there are commanders in very high positions all the way up to stars on their chest as far as being generals, they can't solve the problem. And it takes accountability in order to improve this particular issue. Because God knows we're going to be fucking punished for the other things. So you might as well punish people properly when they do horrible ass shit. I guess that's all I have to say about this. I'm just sorry anybody has had to be subjected to this treatment. I don't even talk about microaggressions, just like constant comments that people get when they're not even formally physically abused. Women get comments all the time. It's just, it's something that any women in the military is like hyper aware of. And unfortunately, most of the situations where someone has received blatant rape and abuse did not report it because of the system that's in place and a lack of faith in it and a lack of accountability for the people doing it and fearing what would happen to their career. That's it in a nutshell right there. I hope it improves. I hope we don't have to think in terms of allies. I hope that hope everybody helps. And all you can do is talk about it as a starting point. So that's what we have to do for progress. And this is something that needs to be improved. Thank you so much for everyone to share their stories that are willing to share with me. and to answer some of my questions about how I can approach this topic. I hope I did it justice. Definitely not going to re-record this. So I hope this helps. That's all. And I hope we can all find a way to just always progress and kind of develop happiness. And if you're struggling, please reach out to the, let me get this right, the selfhelpline.org is a starting point, rain.org with 2 N's on the civilian side. And thanks for listening.